what's going on? This is Brandon from Sound Cannon Productions. Thank you so much for checking out my channel today. What I do here is take a song I've been working on recently and discuss things such as instrumentation, technology like plugins, virtual instruments, DAWs. I talk about anything that has to do with in-the-box production, and then I also discuss song form and how the production and instrumentation might change depending on where we are in the song. Lastly, each song is split up into about 2 to 3 segments. The first one deals with drums, the second one deals with any other instruments that are on the track, and the third one we talk about vocals and vocal production if we have vocals on the track. So, without further ado, enjoy and let me know what you think. Let's just dive in and I'll play you what the verse sounds like. Just about a half of the first verse, you can kind of get an idea for the feel of the tune. Let's go ahead and just solo only what the drums sound like. So we got kick, snare, or sorry, 2 kicks, snare, a snap track, some claps, some additional claps. I believe that's a shaker. Of course, I haven't labeled those 2 yet, unfortunately, or those 4 yet. I should get to that. And then cowbell. So let's check it out, just solo. So that's one section of the verse. There's another section where I add a couple different claps. You can hear how that plays along. And that's kind of the middle section of the verse. The groove does change there a little bit. So let's start with kick. I'm going to show you the sound I have and then a little bit about how it was built and what I used to build it. Let's get rid of that. Alright, so kick 1 is my main kick. Sounds like this soloed. I liked it because I could hear it in the mix pretty well, but it wasn't full of attack or full of high end or anything, which I dug about it too. I kind of like the roll-off sound to it. But that's what it sounds like soloed. So basically what I used on this kick was, first and foremost, the actual synthesizer that created the kick drum. It is called Kick 2 by Sonic Academy. I recommend this to anybody who is looking for a new kick sound or wants to just create, frankly, just better kick sounds, because this plugin is unbelievable. It is so versatile. It sounds really, really good. Just a really brief rundown on it. I could probably spend an entire episode on this, but just in a minute. It works like this. It's basically a synth, like a sine wave, a sub wave, or a sub, and like a sawtooth generator. And then you add clicks to it. So it's not just a kick drum right off the bat. It's more of like a synthesizer that you add the attack to, if that makes any sense. Which is really cool because that gives you a little bit more control of the overall sound, and you can see right away you can pitch, because you can pitch it because it's basically a sub sine wave sound. You can pitch different sections of the song, and then you can also change the amplification or the loudness of each section of the kick. I'm sorry, I think I said song before. So what I've done here is I've brought the pitch down quite a bit, and the reason this is important is because I haven't done it in this song quite so much, but in other songs you can pitch the kick to like the tonic of the key of whatever the song is in. So if the song's in C major, you can just pitch the kick to a C natural, and it kind of resonates with the whole song better. So that's the sine wave / a little bit of sawtooth wave portion of the synthesizer, and then we get over to our clicks, where we actually add our attack. So if I mute my clicks, it sounds like this. pretty rolled off, really cool sounding, I think, still, but it just didn't work for this song. So I will add in click 1. You can see it adds a little high-end percussiveness to it. And then I'll add in by itself click 2. This is more of a snarey, noisy sound. And then put them both together. So the reason I find this so cool is because I can also add the I can choose how loud I want each click to be. So you can really just manipulate and customize this sound to the max. I love it. And the one thing I forgot to mention, which I want to go over really quick, is just you can adjust the length of the kick, which can make a huge difference in the sound. So I'll just show you what that sounds like. So you can get all different types of really great sounds off of this one plugin. Obviously, there's much more to it. You got a limiter, you got your drive section, EQ. I mean, there's so much happening here. We only have time to go over a little bit of it, but please, comment. Let me know if you want me to do a whole episode, maybe just on Kick 2. Now, my actual Kick 2, my second kick, I have this sound. The reason I wanted that sound is because the first kick didn't give me quite enough trashy punch that I wanted for this verse or the song in general. So I layered this other kick, the same exact rhythm, at least for most of the verse, same rhythm, but I layered this underneath my other kick. So if we just hear the first kick alone, and then we add in the second one, you can see it kind of gives us that trashy, punchy sound, which I really like sometimes. What's getting us that sound is mostly the EQ rolling off, or not most of the EQ, but some of it is the EQ. We're rolling off a lot of that kind of shimmery high end. Sorry, let me solo it. Didn't really love that, so I rolled it off. Well on our way to getting that trashy sound already, and then I use this plugin all the time on kick drums. This is Kramer Tape. This is Eddie Kramer's tape plugin. I got it from Waves. Yeah, I got it from Waves plugin manufacturer. Again, you could do, you can talk about this forever, but basically it's a tape machine emulator, and you can kind of hit it hard with the record level to compress a little bit, give it a little harmonic saturation. You can distort it pretty heavily. You can add slap delay. You can add wow flutter, which is kind of like pitch variation throughout if you add a lot of it, and then you can add noise like a tape machine. I just used it mainly to compress the kick and add a little harmonic saturation to it. So that's the two kick sounds, and then we go on to our main snare sound. So this sound is actually a real rim click that I made at a studio that I work at as an engineer. And we have this like really cool secondary location that we call Studio W. It's basically like a warehouse, and it just has this kind of big open warehousey sound. You can't really hear it in this example, but I went in there and I recorded a bunch of sounds, and this was one of them. It was a snarey cross stick thing, and it works really well for cutting through a mix on like a hip hop or pop track. So I'm using the EXS24, which is Logic's sampler plugin. So basically, this is just connecting. This plugin is just basically connecting to a folder that I made that has a bunch of samples in it, and I just chose to use. When I was playing on my MIDI keyboard, I chose to use this cross stick sound. So on this one, kind of similar to that kick drum, I used the Kramer tape again. I use this a lot, you'll notice, and I just distorted it and saturated it a little bit, gave a little bit of compression with that. And I didn't do much with EQ. I took out a little bit of wonkiness in the mid-range and a little bit of crisp high end out of it. I want it to be a little bit darker. So again, we have this sound. Oh, and I forgot to also talk about the delay. I added what I believe it's almost like a 16th note slap delay with this section of this plugin right here, the Kramer Tape plugin. That is giving it just a little bit of a 16th note accent. I think it helps the groove move a little bit forward, and it gives it a little bit of momentum. So instead of just being crack, crack, you get kaka, kaka, and it just kind of gives it a nice little bounce there. So I have a bunch of accents happening underneath the general beat. So let's just solo some of those if we can here. This is what all the accents sound like alone without the kick and the snare. Now I'll play it with the kick and the snare so you can actually hear it with the groove. So you can kind of see without these accents, the groove would be pretty bland. I mean, all these accents just give it such a great life and bounce and energy to it. So I love doing stuff like this. In general, I have a let's see. Let's just go through and just check them out really quick. The first one looks like a snap print. Yeah. So those are real snaps. Again, that's just me in the studio just kind of doing this. Then we have in the middle section of the verse, we have a clap track. Again, all real claps using the EXS-24 sampler. And then let's see what else we got going on here. This fourth track is shaker. And one more thing here, maybe it's just a single clap. And then our cowbell pattern. The cowbell pattern is kind of acting as our hi-hats for this verse instead of just using traditional hi-hats. So, making those, I mean, I actually just played them out on my MIDI keyboard. Everything besides the cowbell is from the EXS-24, so I would just open up the EXS-24, and I would find the sound that I want. I'd roll with a kick and the snare in the background, and I would just kind of fill in the gaps with each accent. As you can see, almost every accent is its own track. I do that sometimes for just control reasons. I can kind of more easily adjust the volume. I can kind of automate the sounds a little bit easier. If they have their own track, I can pan them out more individually. So you'll notice that all my sounds are kind of on their own track. Cool. Let's go into, so that is the verse, by the way. So I will just play that really quickly one more time so you can kind of make sure you get that in your head. Let me get these things soloed. So here's the verse groove one more time. Now, moving on to the chorus, I kept the general gist of the groove there, but I definitely did add a couple layers on top that helped do what I would just call adding momentum. It helped push forward the groove for the chorus so that it got a nice little lift when the chorus hit. So the main thing I did was I added a little bit of a slightly noticeable 4 on the floor sub kick below everything to kind of give it a push. So why don't we go ahead and just listen to that real quick. And I believe I did tune that to, yeah, that's all tuned to a G sharp, which is, or G sharp or A flat, which is the first chord of the root of the first chord of the chorus. So I tuned that to the kind of the root of that chord. And now let me kind of solo up just the groove on the chorus so you kind of see how that differs from our verse groove that we had. Sorry about that. So there you can see there's just more forward motion in that, and a lot of that has to actually do with this. I'm going to start with this hi-hat track. This is what it sounds like alone. So that was played and then quantized, so that's me just going And I try to get as close as I can with a real feel first, and then I just quantize it. Sometimes I don't quantize it all the way. Sometimes I'll just loosely quantize it. You can do that here by double clicking the MIDI track, and then you can kind of choose the strength of your quantizing. So if I select it all and I press Q, it'll quantize it. And then right now I'm doing 100%, so it's totally quantized, but sometimes you can bring it down more and it'll loosen it up a little bit for you, which gives it a great feel as well. That's the first thing that's adding a lot of the momentum to the track, because I don't have that 16th note happening in the verse. And you can see that I've accented one E and ah. I've accented the ah of that groove there to kind of give it some variation. If I was just only 16th notes on the same dynamic on that same sounding hi-hat, it might get a little boring. So let me just solo the hi-hat, the kicks, and the snares, so you can hear how they work together. So obviously that hi-hat's just giving it a ton of motion. See what else we got here. I added accented kicks. I love doing this. It's really, I think it just gives it a really a bouncy feel. So without this accented track, so this is my accented track, without it, I just have these two kicks layered on top of each other. But if you want to give your track a little bit of bounce and not so much forceful 4 on the floor sound, which I think can be kind of almost not as groovy, basically I can add this little accented pattern at a lower volume, different sounding kick to give it a little bit of a bounce. So that alone is going to make the chorus feel much different than the verse, and I think it just, like I said, it's really important to give it a lift, you know, when the chorus comes in. So I added that hi-hat, I added that 4 on the floor sub kick, and then I added that accent and kick pattern to get it to feel a little bit different than the verse, a little more forward moving. One last thing I want to go over before we finish up is I also am a big fan of switching up snare sounds, you know, depending on what part of the song you're in. I think it just makes it more interesting. If you do it too much, it might be a little distracting, but it's definitely okay to do it a little bit. So I added, let's see if I can find out which track it's on. I added a brush fill that I think sounds kind of cool going into this chorus. So that's a brush sound. It's just different from that cross stick that you just heard. So let's kind of hear going into that how that fill sounds. And I love how when the brush fills into the chorus, you never hear it again. You just hear it on that one little fill, and then it goes away, and what takes over is that cross stick that we're all used to now. So let's hear that fill coming in. Sorry guys, I gotta print more of my instruments, or else it's gonna keep doing that. One more time. So what that does is when you put in a new sound at the very beginning of a section, it's just going to signal to the listener that we're going into something. In this instance, it's, you know, we're about to jump into the chorus. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Please write to me and let me know. Comment below. Just let me know what else you might want to learn about these drums. If there's another episode you want me to dedicate to a certain specific aspect of building these drums or getting a specific sound that I had. But until next time, thanks so much, and I will see you later.